Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Cool. First, thank you very much for joining the presentation. I'm Tomo from JPCERT Coordination Center. Today's presentation title is Creating the Coordinator Rules. So let's get started. So a bit about myself. I am Tomo, JPCERT CC Early Warning Group. I am a CVD coordinator, and my job title is Global CVD Project Lead. The project aims for CVD harmonizing international cooperation. So I do many different things related to CVD internationally. And a bit about my organization as well. JPCERT Coordination Center, it was founded in 1996, October. We are independent, meaning non-governmental. We are funded by the government, but we are not government. We're neutral, not-for-profit organization. We do a bunch of security stuff. For example, incident response, network monitoring, vulnerability coordination, and vulnerability coordination is the main topic of this presentation today. So I will touch on the background. And first, CVD, vulnerability coordination. For the people that may not know what vulnerability coordination, CVD is, I will explain what CVD is a little bit. Coordinated vulnerability disclosure. This writing is taken from CERTs CVD document, abstract section. It was so well written that I had to take it. So let's read it. Coordinated vulnerability disclosure, CVD, is the process of gathering information from vulnerability finders, coordinating the sharing of the information between relevant stakeholders, and disclosing the existence of software vulnerabilities and their mitigations to various stakeholders, including the public. And to put it in a simple way, CVD is the process of gathering, coordinating, and disclosing of the vulnerability information found. And most of the time, it is disclosed to the public, but there are some cases when it is disclosed to the limited amount of people. This happens when, let's say, if the vendor of the affected product is aware of all of its users, then the information is often disclosed to the users only, but most of the time, it is disclosed to the public in the form of vulnerability advisories. Okay, CVD, there are some important factors in CVD. Let's go through it. First one, information is reached to appropriate stakeholders. Let's say when a vulnerability is found, the people who are responsible for the fix or who can fix the issue, vendors, developers, suppliers, they need to know about the information. And let's say we receive the information and we report the information to them so that they can be aware of the issue and do something like creating a fix and things like that. So if the information does not reach to the appropriate stakeholders, like who are responsible for the fix, CVD process will not start, nor remediation will not be created. So this is very important. And this fails when, let's say, we have this vulnerability information that we want to report to the vendor, but the vendor is not displaying their contact information publicly on their website and such. It fails. And there are cases when their contact information is too old so that it's not functioning. And often we try our best finding the right contact information of the vendor, but there are some cases where we send the information to a little bit different wrong email addresses, such as sales at. And when we send the information to them, the salespeople receive the vulnerability information and they don't know what it is and just gets ignored. Things like that can happen, so fails in such case as well. So the important thing is the information is reached to appropriate stakeholders. And other stuff, mitigation is created while vulnerability is undisclosed. Vulnerability information is disclosed at an appropriate timing. These are important as well. Because in CVD, the information, vulnerability information is kept secret from the public while the mitigations or remediations are being created. And this is because if the information is leaked while when there's no mitigation for or patch or update for the issue, then it becomes a 0-day where vulnerability is public, information is public, but there's no fix or just no countermeasure for it. So that is the issue. So this is very important as well. And fixes applied, and this is important. This is why we disclose the information to the public. So as it says in the bottom, the purpose of CVD is to reduce risks to the users, developers, and the society. So what we do in CVD is basically risk reduction to the society. Okay, on today's situation, global CVD, NPCVD happening. I will touch on NPCVD later in a few slides, but it's an interdependent world. Different components from different parts of the world assembled to create a product which is to be sold globally. So it is global in that sense. And also the CVD stakeholders, let's say reporters, people who report the vulnerability information to the people who need to know, developers, coordinators like us, users, are all from around the globe. So product-wise, stakeholder-wise, it is a global thing. Okay, I will touch on different patterns of CVD. There are two, to put in a simple way. Let's say this one is a single bilateral CVD case. So you can see reporter sends the information to the vendor, or often these coordinator organizations get involved and send the information to the vendor. However it goes, the coordination is between the reporter or the coordinator and single vendor. So yeah, this is a single vendor case. And the coordination is, as you can see from the picture, it is fairly simple. And now goes NPCVD, multi-party coordinated vulnerability disclosure. So you can see there are multiple stakeholders, participants getting involved in this NPCVD case. Let's say there was a vulnerability found in third-party library, commonly used third-party library, and in such case, many vendors or developers, suppliers need to know about the issue. So this is when this multi-party CVD case starts. And this is very complicated because as the number increases, more timing control, more communication, basically more coordination occurs. And it's not just a number that's complicated. Complexity of NPCVD is actually complexity of software supply chain. So there are more depth and layers, hidden relationships, things like that, that exist in the NPCVD case. So it's very complicated. And as things are becoming more transparent in the software supply chain, we are starting to realize that many cases that even if it looks like a single vendor CVD case, it's actually NPCVD case where these hidden relationships are related to the NPCVD case, and that many stakeholders are getting involved. So what I want you to know here is that in CVD, NPCVD, many cases things are actually very complicated. Okay, CVD coordinators. The reason why coordinator organizations like us exist, if CVD goes well between just reporters and vendors, that is totally fine. That's what we wish happens. But it's not always the case. We still get involved in, we are often brought up and get involved in different CVD and PCVD cases. We accept vulnerability reports. We notify appropriate stakeholders. We coordinate disclosure timings, especially in MPCVD, where things are very complicated. And we even distribute the already publicly disclosed vulnerability information to the people who need to know. People who need to apply patches and stuff like that. So basically, coordinators support CVD cases. We are not the main players of CVD, I would say, but we are the supporters of CVD and PCVD cases. Right. Yeah. So I will touch on the image that we had for the CVD players. Primarily, the CVD players' roles were thought to be more rigid and tied to the organizations or persons. For example, there's a reporter. We were thinking reporters are supposed to be doing such. And coordinators are supposed to be doing such. Vendors, same, supposed to be doing such. We had this image of their position and roles and their function, the stuff that they do. But actually, each roles often overlap. Lines between the roles are actually blur. Stakeholders or the players actually play multiple roles in CVD cases, depending on which stage of CVD case they are in. So for example, reporters, they often coordinate just like coordinators. Coordinators, we report like reporters. And vendors coordinate within their group company. So lines are actually blur and it can overlap sometimes. Oh, sorry, I have sorry. Can you help me with the, okay, thank you. This was the slide that I was talking about. Sorry about that. Actually, each roles often overlap. So today, multiple coordinator or coordinator-like organizations exist in this world. They all have their own mission, reasons, or motivations for CVD. And these are not like official statement by these organizations, but basic thoughts or examples. For example, CERTs, traditional coordinators. CERTs tries to improve the security of computer systems, network within its scope. Governments, they're coordinators too. They do CVD. They focus on protecting the country's citizens and infrastructures. And bug bounty services, they're coordinators. They protect the product customers broadly. Research and encouragement, things like that, they focus on. And vendors, they coordinate within their group companies, things like that, and they try to protect the users. And intentionally or not, the coordinators are all contributing to the social risk reduction process, and they're contributing to the social stability. And this is when, if things go well in CVD. And so what I want to say here is the processes of these different coordinators are similar, but each goals are often different. So coordinator confusions. I will touch on the confusions that occur regarding the coordinators. So first one, confusion one, lack of definition. Coordinator role has not been defined yet. clearly, at least officially. What are the definitions, responsibilities, or capabilities of coordinator? We do not know clearly. And as I mentioned in my previous slides, the reporters or developers often take the coordinator role and coordinate. And pretty much we all have different image for coordinator. So from these, expectations for the coordinators are unmatched in many cases. Confusion number 2, foreign issues. There are many cases where developers, suppliers are contacted by foreign overseas coordinators suddenly to conduct CVD. And the CVD case fails or confusions occur from regional cultural gaps. The gaps are things like language barriers, cultural differences, lack of mutual understandings, things like that. And I would say that every coordinator is local. There's no number one. And different coordinators have different different styles, goals for regarding CVD. And I'm not saying that differences are bad. Actually, we like things being different. Cultural differences are to be encouraged, we believe. But imagine receiving a letter, if you're not from Japan, and if you imagine receiving a letter with a government name written on it with Japanese characters, like the blue letters here, it says vulnerability coordination with some actual stamps on, you would be confused or maybe freak out, and it will be hard for you to take appropriate actions. So what I want to say here is that when the differences are too big, they cause confusions among the stakeholders and can cause CVD cases failures, which is not good. These are the risks that may occur from such confusions. Things like stakeholders are unable to know what to expect from the coordinators, vulnerability information not reaching to the appropriate stakeholders, uncontrolled embargo timings, different skill level between the coordinators, coordinator organizations, or even the coordinator individuals, too personalized often, and possibility of things becoming too authoritative or national. So what do we do? Coordinator role has not been defined yet clearly. And in CVD, stakeholders other than coordinators often act as a coordinator. And as I said, too big of a difference between coordinators cause confusions. And for more efficient global CVD activities, why not define coordinator and create rules for them is my proposal today. Sorry, I missed the slide again. So this was actually the slides. So yeah. So yeah, from the interviews with the vendors. CVD interviews with the Japanese vendors. JPCERT, we conducted interviews with 6 different Japanese vendors on their global CVD situations. They are all global companies. And they all have experiences of receiving vulnerability reports from overseas foreign coordinator organizations and conducting CVD with them. And the overseas coordinators that were mentioned in the interviews were from the US, Netherlands, China, Germany, and Switzerland. So some excerpts from the interviews. We asked them, what kind of trouble did you have, did you experience regarding international global CVD? And I will touch on these. First one, Japan headquarters unnotified of a CVD case. the case was coordinated and solved between the overseas branch and the overseas coordinator. The Japanese headquarters realized the issue when the advisory was actually published. So it was a bit slow for them to realize of the issue, even though they were the headquarters of the company. And other things are like hard to understand what the reporter is expecting, or communications in different languages were hard, they said. Lack of coordination. In some cases, the vendor thought that coordination was too rough, so to speak. Different thoughts for embargo timings. Basically, mutual understandings, unsuccessful. Things like these were mentioned in the interview. Additionally, 60% of the interviewees wishes JPCERT Coordination Center to be involved in international CVD cases. They're having so much trouble. And there are things like miscommunication with the reporter. There was a case when both parties, the vendor and the reporter, agreed that it is not a vulnerability, but the reporter later spoke at a conference blaming the vendor for being insincere. So that was not good for them. And there was some lack of communication with the reporter as the government coordinator organization was in between. So they could not have enough communication with the reporter. Things like that were happening. And I am speaking about the Japanese situations, but this can happen in other places. It's not only Japan. And we're not asking to treat Japan special or anything. But, and it is important to globalize, of course, through translation, localization, trainings. We're tackling this issue domestically as well. And I'm sure while they were having their own troubles, the overseas stakeholders had their own troubles. So, yeah. Not treating Japan special or anything, but this can happen anywhere, is what I want to say. All right, so expectations are matched here. Vulnerability reports from different coordinators from different parts of the world, coming in, going out. Troubles from cultural original gaps occurring. And different laws, regulations are often concerned by the Japanese vendors as well. And there are some voices about JPCERT Coordination Center getting involved in CVD cases. And yeah, I'm not blaming any parties or individuals. I mean, I believe that each stakeholders are doing their best, trying to complete their mission. So that is awesome, but things in many cases are unmatched. So the coordinator rules that I'm proposing. What to do? First, define coordinator role. And yeah, it has not been defined clearly as of yet. And other stakeholders, such as reporters, vendors, take the role, as I mentioned in my previous slides. So it is important that the coordinator role is being defined. And create basic set of rules. Nothing too strict, on my mind, at least. Like global ethics, no power over one another, no punishment. And for this, agreement is a key. And the rules should be in accordance with these documents. There is first guidelines and practices for multi-party vulnerability coordination and disclosure. There's a CERT guide to coordinated vulnerability disclosure that I mentioned earlier. An ISO IEC 29147 disclosure. 30111 vulnerability handling. And there's a technical report 5895 multi-party coordinated vulnerability disclosure as well. And also, there's a project by CERT called Voltron. I cannot speak on behalf of them, but it's basically CVD protocol. Defines roles and states in CVD cases. So this is very interesting. And kind of looks similar to what I'm proposing, but the coordinator rules are to define coordinator or coordination to avoid mismatching in CVD processes. So yeah, similar in some way, but different things. And certain parts of Voltron should match with the coordinator rules. Okay, this is an example that I created referencing ISO IEC 30111, coordinator to the right, to the left, on general definition, coordinator mission, responsibilities, capabilities, things like that could be written down. Also, MPCVD processes, preparation, just like the CVD, normal CVD cases, received, analysis, communication methods, things like choosing vendors, stakeholder stuff, vendor registration, information to be shared, things like that. And of course, disclosure, advisory format, automated maybe, and what information to put, things like that can be written down. And to the right is pretty much the coordinator processes and the relationship with different stakeholders. There's coordinator on the top, preparation, but there's a finder, reporter, or vendor, developer that's being engaged in the CVD processes. So things like that. Things like this can be written down. Not quite sure as of yet, but yeah, this is just an example of what to do. So the possible outcomes from the coordinator rules. First one, global coordinators harmonization, decrease unnecessary gaps, enhance diversities. We like things being different. Match expectations within the stakeholders, between the stakeholders, and better cooperation. And coordinator adoption also, help the starters, maybe create a guidance and create more coordinators. And what I would like to do, pretty much the most, is create coordinators group. I mean, many national CERTs are here, and there are CVD coordinators, so I'm happy that I get to speak this when people like you guys are here, not just national CERTs, even the vendors. So the summary, CVD role expectations between the stakeholders are often unmatched. Next one, value of CVD differs for different stakeholders. So there's a difference always. And coordinator has not been defined clearly as of yet. And confusions regarding coordinators occurring due to regional, cultural, motivational differences. And it is necessary to define coordinator and create rules, guidelines to avoid confusions. And yeah, after going back to Japan, I will start contacting different coordinator or coordinator-like organizations to discuss the idea. But even if you're not a CVD coordinator, your opinions are always welcome. Yes, no, anything will be appreciated. So if you have any thoughts, please use an email address and contact me. That will be it for my presentation. So do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Tomo.
Thank you.
Thanks, speaker. Are there any questions, opinions right now?
Hi, thank you for the talk. You talked about vendors that complained that the overseas branch handled the vulnerability without notifying the headquarters. Is that something that we as coordinators should solve? Isn't that something that the company should solve internally?
Can you say it again? Sorry, I have trouble hearing on stage. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So you talked about that in the interviews, vendors told you that some of the CVD cases were run overseas, and they just were notified once the advisory got released. Isn't that an issue that the company should tackle internally, which doesn't involve us as the coordinators?
That is true. Vendors can solve the things on their own, but in many cases, especially in Japan, I believe, there are some lack of understanding of the global CVD situations and things like that. And they often, in some cases, they need our assistance, support to solve the issue. So it's vendors' responsibility, as you said, but we can always help. So, and we can always harmonize to not create such troubles, at least, by understanding each other. So that is what I'm trying to do. It's not that we're taking, vendors' roles or vendors' responsibilities or things like that. It's a matter of balance, I would say.
Sure. I was just thinking about if I, from Germany, would coordinate something, I would obviously go first to see whether there is a central PSIRT. And if I have a local PSIRT, I obviously would imagine that local PSIRT talks back to the headquarter company, overall PSIRT, and then resolves the issue internally. I wasn't aware that there are issues in there.
I see. Thank you, though. Thank you for your input. I would like to discuss this more with you later, if you don't mind.
A question for me is, are you then advocating, proposing that there is more active communication between all of the coordinators?
Sorry, I can't. Sorry.
That there's more active coordination, communication between the coordinators, all of the international coordinators?
Yes, that's what I'm proposing.
Okay.
For harmonizing, balancing purposes.
Yeah. Maybe make a community and then
Yes, that's
exchange more information. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, any more questions?
Thank you, Thomas.
Are you aware of the CESAR efforts to build a community of practice around global coordinators? And if so, how does your proposal fit into their broader vision of what coordinators and how coordinators should come together?
Thank you. I was not aware, so I need to learn more about it and discuss with the people to harmonize with the project or idea. That would be wonderful.
Okay. Any other questions, opinions? If not, then let's thank the speaker again.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.